Quick, drop a like and subscribe in the next 5 seconds to reveal the hidden secrets of the Chapter 2 bunker. Do you want a free skin or cosmetic from the item shop?
Yes.
Well, simply make sure you subscribe to the channel with the post notification bell turned on and comment your Epic Game ID down below, and let me know in the comments also what you'd like to receive in terms of a gift off me. We're also getting so close to a huge milestone of 1 million subscribers, so I need your guys' help. Everybody watching the video right now, if you're not subscribed, hit that big red button and you could be an OG of the channel before we hit that 1 million subscriber milestone. I think it's safe to say at this point the best event we've seen, most arguably anyways, whether it's to do with teasing, development, or even the event itself, is the Mecha Robot vs Polar Peak Monster Final Showdown. Literally nobody would have expected upon the wash-up of the iceberg at the end of Season 6, start of Season 7, to not only contain layers that would be revealed from the melting of the ice such as the Prisoner's Dungeon, let alone a giant frozen cryogenic slumber beast. Not to mention with the awakening process of this frozen creature being enforced by a volcanic eruption. With the volcanic rock hitting the bottom of Polar Peak days after, we began to see something was awoken living as breath seeped out. With the days turning into weeks, well, an eye was revealed due to the weakening or strength deteriorating of this iceberg. It was clear by now something big was going to happen this season, and obviously when it escaped it only left more clues behind, enforcing this fact with giant footprints being presented imprinted in the snow, then making more appearances also from visiting our island yet again, despite not revealing itself, only a certain part of it in our distant waters being the iceberg, also with the castle attached to it still fully intact. This left players on the edge of their seat, wanting to know what this monster was, finally then revealing itself for the world to see for the first time in the live event, which only lasted a few minutes this battle, yet seemed like forever considering the build-up that Epic Games geniusly planned out this entire season or ever since Season 7. As the Mecha Robot managed to get the upper hand from harnessing the energy of the Nexus Orb, this then allowed it to defeat the Polar Peak monster, slay it, which didn't seem like a true ending to this part of the storyline. Not only did this imply that, with this battle being quick, but the robot fled in, not giving us clarity to where it actually went, or if it was repaired from its arm being ripped off. Season X then came around, and obviously this part of the area where the Polar Peak monster resided on our island was updated to have this radioactive pink substance surrounding it, as if something more was going to happen here. Players then speculated, well, it may be involved in the end event that was revealed earlier on before it happened, but this was not the case and everything was sucked into the black hole. But now we find ourselves upon the black hole expanding into this alternate dimension, universe, or galaxy that the Polar Peak monster may actually reside in this particular parallel version of Fortnite, as it once did in our prior Fortnite island. There's a ton of clues to go over today, and even the whereabouts particularly teased of where the Polar Peak monster is currently trapped in the island that will further be developed throughout storyline events and obviously the progression of seasons. One thing's for sure, make sure you're sticking around and watching the full video today, because honestly things are about to get crazy in terms of our storyline. We have tons of things developed and everything basically displayed that's going to be going on now until the end of the season, despite it being in February 2020. Quickly before we dive into this crazy journey of the storyline and how it's ultimately going to start or pan out, simply make sure to use code FriendlyMachine in the Fortnite item shop if you directly want to support me as your favourite creator and enjoy the types of videos like this on the channel to do with the map changes and the storyline, and let me know in the comment section down below if you're rocking the code, whilst also including your Epic Games ID, so that way I can treat some of you guys to a random V-Bucks card or a gift from the item shop of your choice if you specify what you'd like to be gifted. I love getting you guys involved in the videos, so simply let me know your theories of what's going to be happening with the map changes and the storyline now progressing over the Christmas period and into Chapter 2 Season 2, and if you want to be featured on screen in the next video, simply make sure to tweet me proof of you rocking code FriendlyMachine to my Twitter in the video description down below, like these lovely people on screen right now, and thank you everybody on screen today for rocking the code and supporting me. You guys are absolute legends. Anyways, with that said, now let's begin on this crazy journey of ultimately determining or basically revealing the secrets pointing toward a Polar Peak monster of some kind, whether it's the same one revived through the black hole event, reversing the effects of what the robot actually carried out, or whether it's another of its kind. Anyways, with all that out the way now, we can dive into the juicy stuff, firstly being that it's very possible from things to be making an important appearance in Chapter 2 that actually survived our prior map and the black hole once being sucked into it. We know this initially because, well, entire named locations such as Pleasant Park, Salty Springs and Retail Row, despite being changed, did actually survive but just got revamped due to the effects of this black hole. Not only that, but small Easter eggs can be found around our map, especially at Camp Cod, and also even in our distant water, or even the tomato heads that literally we saw fly in, embedded in the ground to determine this. Many of you will be thinking right now, however, the Polar Peak monster will never return, and it's not anywhere in our island right now, as before it entered the black hole, its remains were remains, meaning it was dead, and slain then by the robot, meaning that it can no longer return. Well, due to the effects of the black hole, considering we've seen revamps or basically reconstruction to prior named locations that we once saw in our prior Fortnite island, who's to say that upon this black hole event occurring, the effects of it didn't actually reverse time, or a version of the Polar Peak monster as it has done with the named locations actually reviving it, or whether there's other versions in this parallel universe that people speculate Chapter 2 to be of the Polar Peak monster. Now, to further enforce that anything is possible to appear from our prior times progressing throughout Chapter 2 now due to the effects of the black hole, we have this explained by somebody over on Reddit to do with the storyline and ultimately the direction of which it's most likely to go. And we need to mention this now before we get into all the subtle hints of the Polar Peak monster, or a monster of its kind, residing now in our Fortnite Chapter 2 island. The theory itself will remain on screen as I read it out so you guys can follow along, and states the following: since a black hole warps time, it can make 2 days feel like a year. In that year we were in the black hole, all of the inhabitants of the new island got to build it, memorabilia of the old island got sucked into the black hole and got spat out in the new dimension, including the Durr Burger and the Tomato Head, which we've already proven. The Seven intended to make a rift in time and destroy the 0 point, because if they didn't, it would have exploded and created the new island. As you remember from the Season 5 loading screen, you can see Bright Bomber touching the cube, here it is for reference, with a Dark Bomber reflection. The new people on the island, we call them Egos, crash landed at the crash site in their plane near Sweaty Sands. They then migrated east and built an Ego outpost. They then expanded across the entire island building Ego outposts, but as we saw in the loading screen, everything has a dark side. The three, Journey, Hazard and Ripley, all have their dark sides. The alter egos, when they went through the black hole along with Kevin mutating them into their alter ego versions of themselves, perfect replicas of the egos but evil. The egos and the alter egos have an epic battle all season, destroying buildings and towns for rule of the island. Who will you choose to fight for, the egos or the alter egos? Well, this was definitely an interesting theory, and despite it not mentioning anything about, like, our prior time specifically with the Polar Peak monster returning, it does enforce this fact to happening or being possible due to, well, it's stating that things being sucked into the black hole now have a direct importance in our storyline. Despite the Polar Peak monster remains not residing on our island as they once did in Chapter 1, just like we now see the Durr Burger and the Tomato Head embedded in the ground that we literally saw in our prior island, we have teases of what the remains actually left behind, being this pink substance that was once around the remains, but now on this particular side of the island affecting the grass. With us now being revealed toward the true identity of the secret codename alter ego skin that turned out to be the true name Serana, and with everything being leaked from the files in terms of loading screens, we have teases toward not only where the map is going to develop into the Christmas period, but the storyline as a whole, and things have just got really interesting. More specifically looking at these two loading screens, as we can clearly see, as the theory stated, there is a conflict perfectly established of a battle commencing between the two sides, Alter and Ego. From transitioning now to a loading screen that currently isn't in the game but data miners were able to pull from the files, there are tons of clues, especially located, predominantly anyways, on these TV loading screens. As you can see, one of the skins from the Final Reckoning seems to be in the way of one of them, indicating a snowstorm, which we know is going to be happening due to it being leaked in the files that snow will be sweeping the map, whether it's live in-game like the Ice Storm event event, we do not yet know, but this won't be the major live event if this happens. We know something is definitely going to be going down, largely also indicated on one particular TV loading screen with this secret bunker. Many players speculated even since the start of the season with it making an uncanny resemblance to the bunker we see in Save the World, having a large involvement in that storyline, that it will have a large involvement this season or throughout this chapter and the storyline itself that's yet to unfold. Now many of you may be looking at the thumbnail and thinking, well, how does the Polar Peak monster have any correlation to this bunker, and how do we know that it may actually reside in here from being trapped into this alternate dimension instead of being slain like it was in our past dimension by the mecha robot? Well, as you guys know, Epic Games, when they revealed the Polar Peak monster or introduced us to it to make sense of it in the storyline, had it frozen beneath a snowy iceberg or ultimately a big snowy structure. And what do we have here at the secret bunker? Well, as you can see, this is one of the only parts of the map, if the only right now, that has natural snow falling on it, not due to the winter period of our time in real life affecting our map, and because of this, whatever resides below this giant structure of snow, we've typically seen in the past to be something huge like the Polar Peak monster, and here now, the secret bunker is what we're faced with below this giant snowy structure itself. As secrets are yet to be answered about the Polar Peak monster from our prior times, such as why did it want to harness the energy of the 0 point even before the robot actually thought about using it to beat the Polar Peak monster, and what is this substance that actually started appearing around it, we know that tests are being carried out on our second chapter, Fortnite Island now, due to these tables. So what if this actually occurred again before we got here from the Black Hole event, the events of the Polar Peak monster, but instead of it being slain as previously mentioned, they trapped it and then carried out tests inside a laboratory of some sort that we know is indicated to be what this bunker is due to the resemblance made to this bunker in Save the World being Dr. Vinderman's laboratory. With it only being a matter of time before the secrets of this bunker are revealed, who's to say that this monster from being trapped in it and tested on isn't angry just like the monster in our prior dimension from being trapped underneath the iceberg, and because of this then breaks out in a fit of rage, as you can see like I've portrayed in the thumbnail. This honestly would make sense as to why Epic Games have kept very quiet or not give us many leads in terms of the storyline aspect despite this conflict between these two teams, Alter and Ego. Now despite this just now being a theory, and despite people either wanting the Polar Peak monster to return fully intact or for us to be introduced to a new Fortnite monster, we know it's largely possible again from what was implemented or shown throughout Season X, not only in terms of the map changes but the files. Again in Season X we saw what we thought was impossible being the return of something after it literally exploded right in front of our eyes, being Kevin the Cube's floating island form through the form of a rift beacon making it return. This again before it was introduced or added was implemented to the files, all the events basically, prior involved with Kevin the Cube and its particular floating island form. But alongside this, more interestingly, all the event files for what happened in the final showdown directly involving or surrounding the Catus, codename for the Polar Peak monster, and Dogus, codename for the robot, were re-added. For this reason we speculated they would directly be involved in the end event considering they were re-implemented, but this didn't happen, so who's to say from Epic Games implementing this all the way back then that they haven't scrapped this event to be involved in what was meant to be the end event but is going to be involved now secretly, as players would never actually speculate this would be the case, in Chapter 2. In terms of the monster making an appearance in our new Chapter 2 map or realm or dimension or universe, whatever you want to refer to it as, why would this be the case, and realistically what could they do in terms of involving it furthermore in our storyline? Well, we know a conflict between two giant things worked out very well, especially with the robot in our prior chapter or prior dimension, and obviously this season we've been teased in the files toward another giant being in our distant waters, being the legend of Craggy Cliffs, which seems to be some sort of giant sea monster. So who's to say that a conflict won't be carried out, as we know the Polar Peak monster can swim, with this in our distant waters, maybe perhaps also making an appearance at some point, the legend of Craggy Cliffs fighting the Polar Peak monster for some reason. If we are correct about this version of Fortnite being a parallel universe of our prior times or island or even that particular dimension, it's safe to say that something similar or along the lines of a giant monster fighting another giant thing will be happening. And let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think it will be displayed basically of everything we've mentioned in today's video. With that said, now we've finally concluded everything we know about the storyline progression and ultimately the reappearance being likely of the Polar Peak monster. So if you enjoyed, make sure to slap a like in the video down below, and make sure you're also subscribed to the channel already if you haven't, with all notifications turned on, as this will keep you in the loop as soon as we get the scoop about anything to do with map changes affecting even the storyline or the progression of Fortnite into the future. Hopefully I can catch and recognise you guys from remaining active in the comment section of my future videos to come, and I'm out. Have an amazing rest of your day or night wherever you are whenever you're watching. Have a good one, take it easy, and as always, peace.